For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Mark. I run Smoothly Consulting. I spend most of my time helping organizations get more out of their Power BI and Microsoft Fabric. Tonight, I have a demo here. So instead of building something from scratch, I want to walk you through a checklist that I've built. There's 11 items that I look for every single time I build or I review a Power BI report. So some of the things I'm sure many of you are already doing.
Real quick, are you sharing your screen or?
Not yet.
There you go. Okay.
And actually, I will share the checklist here with you. So here is the checklist. There's 11 items here. A lot of things you're already doing. Some of them might be new. Some might you might take a look at, and it might remind you to go back and fix a few things in your report that you shipped last week or whatnot. And I've got a demo report behind this as well in Power BI Desktop. So I'll be jumping into that to show you each one of these items in action. I'll also share the checklist itself in the chat. So you can take it with you and use it on your own if you'd like. So yeah, and if there's anything that sparks any questions, feel free to put it in the chat, and Greg or Steve will mention it, and we'll get to that. All right. So first thing is DAX formatting. Now, I know it's not like the hottest topic around there, but it does matter quite a bit. If you've ever inherited a Power BI file, or even looked at a file that's like a past version that you made years ago, open up all the measures and take a look at, all the code that's in there. You'll know what I'm talking about. It's, aesthetically not very pleasant to look at when you see DAX code that's, not formatted properly. Here, let's look at this. So when you look at this, you're not really sure exactly what's going on, or, if you need to decipher some DAX code here, it's not very easy to read. So what I like to do when I'm creating DAX code one by one or in a report, there's a few different tools that are available for you. One of the easiest ones that I use probably most often is the daxformatter.com. So right in here, actually, there's one that I was testing out right before this video call. You can also use the DAX query view. So I'll actually show you guys. You can right click on any one of these tables here, go to quick queries, define all measures in this model, and then that button. Here we go. Format. It'll format all of them. I think you didn't see anything change because I pressed it earlier today. And then you would hit update model with changes. So if I do that, update model, let's go back to that one measure that we were looking at earlier. Is working on it, so usually it doesn't take this long. There we go. Take a look at that. Here we go. So this does look much more formatted than before, a little bit easier to read. Still, to me, it's not exactly the way I like to see it. Everyone has their own preference. I think really the point is that it's all about having consistency with the formatting of your DAX throughout the whole model. So you want to have all your DAX code formatted, usually in a consistent manner. Let's see if I put this into daxformatter.com. Click new here. And I have this bookmarked at all times, so it's really easy to access. And see, this is more like the way that I like to have it formatted. So after the name of the measure itself, it goes to the next line, puts a space in between all the functions, and the parentheses, spaces between anything that's in between the parentheses. So you just hit copy, go in here, paste. The only thing that I don't like personally, which it's just me being super nitpicky, is that last line there with an extra space. So there we go. The last option that, well, I'm sure there's more options, but I like using tabular editor, especially if it's not a Power BI report that I'm actually building myself. It's one that I've inherited, and I've also inherited the big wall of mess of DAX that goes along with it. I like to go to tabular editor. If you have it in here in your external tools, the external tools tab, if you have in there, you can just click on it. I already have it open here, and you'll want to go to, this is what it opens up to, but you'll want to go to the C# script, go to samples. It comes usually with a macro to format all. I actually edited this macro and created my own because the one that it comes with shows it formats it in the same way that the DAX query view does, with the first line of code together with the measure name itself. So this basically is formatting all the measures in the model and putting a new line after the equal sign there. And so you just hit that green button, run script, and there's an error, which is pretty awesome and convenient when you're presenting. But usually what you end up doing is, if it does run successfully, you hit save, and then all of that will be saved to your PBIX file. So point is, keep it consistent, format everything. Later on in the future, you'll be thinking yourself, if you need to look into these measures, you need to do any debugging, or if you pass it along to any other developers who need to dissect the code and understand what's going on, it's just a lot easier to understand, what's going on in each line of code instead of just having it all bundled together or whatnot. All right, so next thing, while we're looking at measures, let's talk about naming. So this is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. I think it comes, a lot of times I see that it comes from developers who may not have used Power BI in the past and come from, database or engineering background, where underscores and camel cases are totally normal. And Power BI, it's not really a database, as we all know. So your measures do show up in a lot of titles of visuals and tooltips in this field list right here. And even business users who need to build reports as well, they'll be looking through here, and a lot of times you want to make it humanly readable, basically. So if you're looking at something that's like TOT underscore rev underscore YTD or something like this right here, gross profit, well, this is actually more readable. But anyways, I think you get the point. That's what your end users will see. So my advice is use plain language, use spaces, be descriptive, not too descriptive, obviously. You don't want it to be like a sentence, but something like total revenue year to date, or this one right here, this could use some spaces, and delete that underscore over there and delete that underscore, and there we go. Also, another thing is being consistent with your naming conventions, really. Gross profit forecast total, gross profit forecast total moving YTD, and then moving on to like the sales, there's a sales forecast total moving YTD somewhere over here as well. Just consistency in the nomenclature and in the naming conventions makes it a lot easier for report builders who are using the semantic model. Also for yourself when you're looking back into it and you don't have the whole entire model memorized, or you come back 6 months later and you're looking for certain measures. I always find it helpful when I come back to that.
Hey, Mark, you got a question in chat. It's Eric asked, if you rename your DAX, how do you go through and update all the places in the report where the DAX was used?
That is a good question. So if you rename the DAX, a lot of times any other measures that are using that DAX will automatically be updated. But there are certain situations where maybe it's being referenced elsewhere. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but there have been times where I've had to remap it. And this pane here is really helpful too. If you expand everything, you'll see if there's an error somewhere. Let's see if I take this out. I don't know why this is being so slow today. But you'll see an error somewhere over here. There we go. See, right there. So usually that's an indication that something's written incorrectly. Maybe if there's another measure or something else that's referencing a measure that you changed, at least you know where to go to. But usually any other measures referencing a measure that the name has been changed or anything changed up will carry on those changes as well. That's what I've seen. See here. Any other questions? Alrighty. So dedicated measure table with display folders. So yeah, still in the whole modeling section here. And this is more about where your measures live. By default, Power BI will put a measure wherever you happen to create it. So if you end up creating a measure like in a fact table or dimension table, that's usually where it will live. But that can become a mess real quickly, especially when you're building out visuals and need to find those measures and whatnot. So what I always end up doing, one of the first things I do when I start building my model is I build a measures table. I actually have two of them here. and honestly, this second one could probably be a folder within the first one, but yeah, within that table, I like to group all my measures based on their purpose, what they need to be doing, and whatnot. And then within that table, I'm showing the wrong table here. Yep, have the folders. So I had a few of them here for this demo actually. And so like for gross profit, we have the actuals, all the measures here. And yeah, that is quite a few measures, but how you do that is there's a couple of ways. You can either bring in a blank table from your data source, whether it's SQL or Excel or whatever it may be. You can build a DAX table that's completely empty. I mean, you'll need a column still. What I prefer doing is I'll expand this here. Just going to enter data. I'll name this demo calcs. Next, it lets you know that all the cells will be empty. Are you sure you want to create this table? Yes, that's exactly what I want to do. Takes me to Power Query. Hit close and apply. Sorry, that was really quick. But I did hit close and apply. And so you might be thinking, okay, well, how come this table isn't at the top like these two measure tables and they don't have the logo over there? Well, because we don't have any measures in there right now, but and we only have one column, which every table requires to have one column in the model. So I'll create a measure here like sales equals sum of, there we go. All right, well, it still didn't move to the top here with these other measure tables. Reason being, as you see in these measure tables, you don't see this column 1. So what you need to do is actually hide it from the report view. Once you do that, ta-da, it'll move back up over here. That way, when you're building out your reports, these measure tables are sitting at the top of that list, and they're a lot easier to find. I guess going a step further than that, you see I have the folders here. So, for example, I have these gross profit metrics, actuals, and in here you'll see. So this is from the model view. If you go to the model view, you'll be able to see this entire screen. And once you click on any of these measures, you'll see the display folder section where you can just start typing in, where you want it to belong. So like if I wanted to create a new folder called hello, I can do that. And it'll be nested under the DAX measures. I can have another subfolder by doing this. And you can even have it be part of 2 different folders. So for example, like if you wanted it to be in here, but sometimes I have like text-based measures that are supposed to be for labels or titles, and but they also fit in one of these folders. I'll create a separate folder for those labels, and if I do this semicolon, even though it's not a text, but it's just for examples. Now it's in 2 different folders here. So there's many ways that you can get a little crafty with how you organize measures. The whole point is doing it in a way that will be very helpful for you and anyone who takes on this report and semantic model as well.
That is so key. I had no idea about this, the semicolon thing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Please, everybody, document your DAX. Please. The next Power BI developer will appreciate it.
Very, very true. All right, so the next section, this one is, actually about documenting DAX here. It's this one's super easy to skip and also easy to regret skipping as well in the model view, which we are in right now. Every measure, every table, every, no, I'm not saying document everything, but every measure, every table, every column is documentable. So like if I click on fact sales, you'll see I probably didn't document like any of these tables, to be honest. I think there's one of them I did. Okay, I only did the DAX measures one, so which is considered a table within a semantic model. And the description here, there's this little field called description right above synonyms, and right here it says collection of DAX measures being used in the report. Why would I want to do this? Well, I guess the first reason, probably the least important reason, is I want to know myself while I'm building out visuals, what these tables or columns or measures really do. But I think more importantly, if you're passing it along to anyone or taking a look at like the semantic model, many months later, and you've forgotten what it's all about, it's super, super helpful, especially for business users who you hand off or you give them access to the model and they can build reports off of it. So like, for example, if you have a measure called adjusted margin net, yeah, that could be pretty easy to understand, but at the same time, sometimes there's nuances or different logics built into net margin. So it could be like, oh, okay, this net margin it's the net margin after applying, regional cost adjustments or excluding, certain intercompany transfers, but the end user wouldn't know that at all unless you provided that information there. And they don't, once you put it in this section, the description, they don't have to go over here to the model view and look at the description. All they need to do is hover over the measure and it's right there. So if I go to the report view, I hover over any one of these measures here, it'll tell me, gross profit forecast total, calculates the total forecasted pounds over the last 3 years, et cetera, et cetera. And you can do the same thing for columns and tables. I don't always suggest doing it for every single column and table. That's a lot of work. But at least ones where you think there are some nuances, certain things that the business user is not going to know right off the bat, or certain things that, nuances that you're not going to remember 6 months down the line when you're working on this this again. So that way, the name itself of the table or the column or measure is, if it's not like self-explanatory enough, you have it right there. I don't know if anyone saw that, but my that's my daughter right behind me. Let's see here. She loves getting in my videos or my calls here.
She's gonna be a Power BI developer one day, that's for sure.
She is, yeah. She does critique my reports every once in a while, usually based on the colors.
Really? Not the DAX?
We're getting there. So that's everything I have for the model layer. Now, let's talk about what a lot of developers overlook entirely, which is the selection pane. If you open the selection pane here, let's see here. In Power BI, you can see all the visuals that are in the selection pane. I have it on tab order. I'm going to put it on layer order here. And a lot of times, another one of my pet peeves is that you'll see things like, well, actually, this one's not so bad, but you see things like text box, image, card, slicer. But if you have a ton of slicers, a ton of cards and images and text boxes, you'll have slicer 1, slicer 2, or all of them. Actually, I think they'll all be named slicer by default in Power BI. So I follow a simple convention. Every visual gets the name of its type, whatever it comes with, like slicer, and then a dash and a description for it. Of course, if you have a title in your visual, it'll take on the title name. But otherwise, I like to have it something more like this. So actually, text box, I probably would change to like text box, page title, especially if you have a bunch of text boxes or more than one. Image, what image is it? If you have more than one, you're not really going to know. It's the logo. And then this one took on the title of this visual year-to-date quantity to goal, but then here's slicer. I always see it with slicers because there's always multiple slicers. And this is actually one of those, it's a button slicer. So it puts everything into one slicer. It's actually just one field parameter there. So I think you get the point there. It sounds like a lot of extra work, but it really pays off the moment you do it, especially if you got to debug something or hand it off to someone else, or you come back 6 months later again. The selection pane becomes kind of like a readable map of what your report is, instead of being a complete mystery, especially if you have so many different visuals that are the same type. So naming isn't just the first part, though. Naming is the first part. There's another part. The order that they appear in also matters a lot. I'll move on to this one, actually. So the order of the visuals in a selection pane, it controls the stacking order on the canvas. So which usually sits on top. So sorry, a few distractions over here. I have my dog and my daughter. It has a practical consequence a lot of people don't think about. So Actually, hold on one more. I think I skipped a section here. So yeah, basically you want to order from top to bottom, and left to right, top to bottom, going up one layer at a time. And this one's actually not ordered properly. So what I would personally do is, so bottom left, start with quantity overview, or with this chart, I mean, and then you go to the left. So this would be the second one. And then this one would be the third, even though a lot of times these don't really matter as much. And I'll tell you in a moment why this matters. So,
And real quick, Mark, Robert asked Z-index. Yes? Question mark.
Z-index? Sorry, I'm not following.
Robert, feel free to come off mute.
I was getting my graphic design concept screwed up. The Z-index is the vertical layer. So it's like the stacking, but I don't think you do that here. So like if you want something all the way in the back or all the way in the front. But
Oh, you mean like the Z plane? So like there's the X, the X and Y coordinate, and then Z is like the forward and back. Is what he meant.
I was mixing that up.
All good.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely controls, what's behind, what's in front, and that's kind of the whole point of this is so where's what? Okay. So what I would do is left to right, bottom to top, and basically one of the consequences of not doing this is, so you'll see this one, wait a minute. This one is layered before the slicers, and the slicers are layered before the cards. And it's not as easy to see, and I have this all messed up on purpose here, but it's not easy to see. Well, I guess you can see it right here. The slicers, so those little icons that pop up and whatnot. Well, over here, since it's not layered properly, like the slicer is actually after the card and they're named improperly, you can't really see these icons over here when you hover over. And I actually have a published version. So, yep, you'll see right here when you hover over it, these little icons are underneath the visual that's on top of it. So that's one of the biggest reasons why you do want to layer these properly in the layer order or selection pane. Also, it just keeps it consistent, predictable, prevents the header icon problem. So within that ordering, grouping takes it a whole new step further. Once your visuals are named and ordered, the next step is grouping. If you've got 5 slicers, which I only have 2 right here, and I guess if you count that one too, but if you have like 5 slicers, a slicer pane that you've built over here, it's always a good idea to group them together. And the same logic applies within the groups as well. You can apply the same ordering convention inside the groups. The bottom left to right rule applies. So like I'll show you guys here. So customer would come, since it's underneath the date slicer, I would put this over here. And then we have the logo in here as well. So I would drop that down below the date slicer. And then we want these all to be layered on top of whatever this is. It's a shape, actually. I'll probably rename this too. This is one that I copied. So shape, slicer background. And then you can click on the first one, hold shift, and then click on the last one, right click, group, and then rename this group here. I usually like to name it slicer pane. You can name it slicer group, whatever you like, but if you click through them, you can see that they're ordered properly. Bottom left to going up. Let's see here. And then this text box, actually, okay, so what would be next here, these are grouped as well. And so this would be the first item. The slicer would be next. I would probably rename this one as well, going back to one of our previous topics here. So slicer categories. And then the next one would be this card, which normally I would do like KPI card and a description of what it is. But since it has a title here, it's going to take on that title. And then group these three things as well. Group. And then charts or whatever you want to name it. And then, oh, I did forget one thing. The shape right here. I will rename this shape, chart background, and then drop it right into this group. It should be the last part because you want it layered underneath everything else. And then now thinking about, our left to right, left bottom right going up, we want this slicer pane group to be first, and then the charts group to be second, and then the text box, you could have that, I guess, according to this rule, you could have it first. It just depends. Sometimes it doesn't matter for me. I think if it's kind of like a one-off item, but at the same time, if you need it layered on top of something else, like if it's sitting on top of, kind of here in the corner, yeah, it should definitely be, sitting on top. In fact, it probably should be grouped in here. You could rename that, text box, I don't know, note, disclaimer, whatever you'd like. Okay, so I think you get the idea here. This is something that's, I think, super important, especially when the end user is going through the report, and then they see that obviously I wouldn't put these icons on a slicer, but let's say, for example, if it was over here on this visual and you wanted to see the filtering or add an alert or whatever you may, but then you couldn't because it's layered underneath the visual on top of it, that'd be really annoying and just not really a good look, I believe. So the last thing in this section is one of the most important things. I think it's it's an important one for accessibility, and it's the one a lot of developers often skip. It's the tab order. So you saw it here right next to the report order, the tab order. So this one's really critical in my opinion. And because it directly affects whether your report is usable by people who navigate with a keyboard or use a screen reader. So by default, Power BI assigns tab order to the visualizations based on based on the order that you add those visuals to the page. So that means like if you're building a report over time, adding things here and there, that's what the tab order, that's in what order the tab order will put those visuals. So basically it essentially ends up being like a random order. A keyboard user pressing tab might jump from a KPI card on the top to the logo over here instead of the next logical item, which would be right here, this slicer over here. So it's an accessibility failure basically. So my suggestion is take the time, go through tab order intentionally on every page, guide the user through the report in a logical reading sequence and from top to bottom, left to right. And equally as important is removing like decorative elements from the tab order entirely. So background shapes, logos, images, even page titles, dividers, unless they serve an additional purpose, like a page title, you want to be able to click on it and it goes to a website. Obviously in that situation, you'd probably, for accessibility, you would want to put something in this alt text section where you have a description like click on this to go to the website or whatnot. But if someone's navigating with a keyboard, they don't need to tab on your logo or a divider or a background. So I'll show you here what I mean. So let's open these up in the tab order. And you would think the first thing, I think in my head, the first thing that I would want them to tab on are probably these two slicers. So date would need to be first, and then the customer slicer. And then I guess honestly, you could probably go with either one of these. Actually, I would go with this one right here. Okay, and then actually moving back up, this one, the shape slicer background, there's no need to have that in there. So I would hit this this button here, which removes it so they don't have the ability to actually tab on it. So in this section, the only thing that they can tab on are these two items. So I'll show you if I have that selected, I'm going to hit tab and it goes down to the customer slicer. And if I hit enter, it'll select that drop down, hit enter again. And then you see here I can kind of navigate my way through. If I hit enter, it'll select that and it controls the selection on these slicers here. And I can.
Hey, Mark, we got another question. Would you recommend using slicers for filtering or the built-in filter pane in a Power BI report? They have a report. Users asked to be included at least 6 different filters for them to analyze the data.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it depends. So if there's a lot of slicers, I don't like having them all visible personally, but it also depends on the end user. If they really require it, sometimes they do. You know, you got to add that in there. I've also had a lot of experiences where the end users, they just don't want to use the filter pane. But then I've also had experiences where they love using the filter pane and using the canvas for visualizations. Another one of my favorite tricks, if there are a ton of slicers and they really do want to use, they don't want to use the filter pane, is you can create like a custom pop out filter pane. So like this entire section, instead of showing that there, you can have that hidden, have a little button that's tied to a bookmark, and then show this entire filter pane, so that they can, you know, navigate through all the slicers that they want. I mean, you can fill the entire page with slicers if you want, and then with another click, just hide them all and have them all apply. So those are three different options there, but it all starts with the customer or end user. You know, what are they comfortable using? What are their, you know, hard requirements? Do they need to see them on the canvas, or can they use them on the filter pane? And then, you know, would they like to use a custom one where there's a button to just pop them out or not?
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Let's see here. I think we were about done with this section though. Yeah, I think you probably got the point there. Is you know, for accessibility, this is definitely something that I think deserves a good thought into how to logically order all of this, and what to hide, what not to hide, etc. Let's see here. So it looks like we've already gone through 2 sections. We have 1 section to go. So, and that's let's talk about the report itself and how it looks, how it behaves. So I'm a little bit of a stickler on this one: spacing, alignment, margins, padding, kind of all of that, which is why I presented this page over here. So the thing about like inconsistent spacing, I feel like users feel it when, even if they can't see it or name it, you know, if there's gaps between 2 visuals that are, you know, 16 pixels, while the gaps between other visuals are only 8 pixels, or there's no gaps right here, but it's really inconsistent all throughout. You feel it. It's there, but you might not be able to, you know, see it right off the bat. And yeah, so when you're distributing visuals horizontally or vertically, I suggest using a lot of the tools that they have here in Power BI. You can use grid lines, which honestly, I don't find grid lines very useful myself. I'm sure other developers might, but what I find super useful is the snap to grid option here. I almost always have that checked on, unless the only instances I haven't is if like I'm working with an actual product group and they have super hard pixel requirements, you know, how many spaces visualizations need to be from the edge of the canvas and whatnot. because if you do have snap to grid, and this is one of the nuances about Power BI, if you have too many panes open and you click on one of these and you hit like the left arrow, it's going to move a lot of pixels there, or points. I can't remember what they use there, but if you have only one or two open, it'll move it 8 points each direction. So that's kind of how I do it. So like if I move it to the right one, that's 8. You'll see in the formatting pane, if you go to size and style, horizontally, it moved 8, right? If I do one more, it'll move 16. So that's kind of how I do mine there. And I make sure that all the spacing between the edge of the canvas and all of the visuals are exactly the same. So this one here would need to be like that. The spacing between visuals here, I believe this is a 8, 16. So between these two need to be 16. And if you go into this page, this is the way that I would do it. It's different for every report and whatnot, but the point is keeping it consistent so that it's not at all visually distracting. And, I just never really eyeball it, especially if I have snap to grid on and only a couple of panes open here. That's all I really need, me personally. When you're distributing visuals, you can use also other tools, like, let's see here, if I click on this, go to format, let's see here. Actually, let's do this. So let's say I want to distribute this slicer visual perfectly between these two, the KPI cards and the bar chart. I would click off 3, go to align, and distribute vertically, and it's perfectly distributed. I don't think this is the way I had it normally, but it's all right. At least for demo purposes. There we go. So yeah, it's one of those things that I think where the work that you put into it, it's invisible when you do it right, but it's very visible when you don't. So spacing effects layout. The next one that we have here is about a small.
Hey, Mark, before you go, we got a question in chat. Could you walk us through how you design the overall content and how users will navigate through it? Also, do you have a drill through report item detail tab and what information is included in the forecast tab?
So is that one? Okay. Could you walk through how you design the overall content? So I'm a little lost here. Like the overall.
I think he's maybe just asking a question about like, what was your design inspiration? How did you put it together from like an aesthetic perspective? And then some of the drill through question.
Yeah, I guess so. So a lot of times I do the KPIs up on top. And then I guess like kind of naturally how the human eye reads things is it goes from top left to right bottom. So the things that are easier to read, I try to put them on the top left. honestly, this logo and the title, it's kind of a waste of space being in the top left because that's where the human eye really goes first. But a lot of times, clients require having their logo and title on the top left. So I try to put other things that are super easy to read in this section over here. And if there's a table, I put it on the bottom right, or anything that requires the user to read things. Inspirationally, I think over the years, my designs have changed quite a bit. And I feel like every year, if I look at my Power BI reports every year, they're, it's like an evolution. So I guess right now I kind of like fine lines that border with rounded edges. I'm kind of over the whole shadow thing that was going on a few years ago. I really love these new KPI cards, and this one actually is it's like a slicer. It has like a built-in slicer into it. Yeah, I use reference labels quite a bit on bar charts as well. So, and also on these KPI cards. I'm not sure if that completely answers the question there. Drill throughs. Yeah, so drill through. So something like this. I don't have a drill through selected or present here, but normally I would probably have a drill through to one of these detail pages. There's also a forecast page as well, which is formatted very much the same as this. So, yep. A lot of times I would put, maybe this on the left side. I do a lot of playing around to see what works. Maybe slicers on the left here in a vertical order instead. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Got one more follow-up. I'll just let you read it instead of reading it out loud to you.
Oh, yeah, I have two sales overview tabs here, just because I wanted to present. I guess it's not very visible here. There's a thumbs up here. There's a thumbs down here. So I started out with, the one that didn't look right, and this is supposed to be like the good example for the demo. So that's why I have two overview tabs. In the detail pages, it's just customer details, item details, stuff like that. So like we have like year over year, current year, previous year, year over year change, year over year percent change. You can slice and dice by date, customer. This is all like fake data. So yeah. Normally, I would probably do some conditional formatting here and there. I wasn't planning on presenting these pages today, but there's definitely a little bit more that I would do normally to make this look a little sharper. Put in some conditional formatting here and there, change up some of the labels. Probably this thing as well, but I could go pretty deep into that. Yeah. Anything else before I move on to the next section? Cool. So let's see here. The next one is about a small detail that that has a big impact on how the polished report feels, and it's the visual header icons. So, these little icons here. Well, over here it's up here on the top right of the visual usually. Sometimes it kind of lingers on top of the visual or above the visual on the top right corner still. It has like the focus mode, the filter icon, the drill buttons, and all those different options there. So the default is in Power BI that they're everywhere on every single visual, and it's I find it pretty annoying because it doesn't need to be on every visual, especially on like slicers and items where the end user is not going to really use them. It'll probably just confuse them, to be honest. But I guess yeah, to me it's visual noise. It looks more cluttered when you hover over them. They're not supposed to be there, especially when there's other visuals around there. And sometimes it's just, like I said, confusing to the end user. And so unfortunately, they don't have an option to just globally turn them off, but you can do that with a custom report theme file, which is really awesome. And that way you only turn them on individually when needed. And I wish I could provide one of those report theme files for you, but I don't have one at the moment that I could provide. But they're not too difficult to build, actually. Yeah, so every visual should, I think, deliberately have their settings either with these tooltips either on or off. So I have it off here. I have it off on basically all of them except like the actual charts. And over here, you can actually choose which ones you want to turn on or off. Oh, it's not tooltips, it's header icons. So, and as you can see, there's a ton of header icons here that are that you can, choose to turn on or toggle off. A lot of which, usually doesn't matter. Sometimes I only keep like the filter on so that the end user can see which filters are applied in the background or over here. And sometimes, depending on the end user, like you want to know who the user is going to be, who the audience is, and there are times where you just want to turn them off for every single visual, no matter what. But otherwise, you'll be bombarded with a ton of questions. But anyways, yeah, I just make sure no header icon is ever covered by an overlapping visual as well. So that's something that we talked about in the selection pane section. So the last one is the last topic we're talking about is about the behavior and not the appearance. So this one trips up a lot of people sometimes, is cross-filtering. So by default, a user can click on a bar. I think I was going to use this page. Yes, so you can click on a bar, this category called milk, and it cross-filters, these KPIs here. And it cross filters almost every other visual that page on that page. And it's a really cool feature that, Power BI has, but sometimes in practice that causes issues, especially when the end user is not expecting that, or when the values for a specific visual as these KPI cards, maybe the end user's expecting them to just stay static no matter what. So for example, like the title here says "This Year at a Glance" for this KPI card. But if I click on 2025, all of a sudden, it's this is all blank. Well, the reason why it's blank is because the measures behind it are wired to be, the logic is current year only. So when I click on 2025, that's not current year. So what I would do in this instance is go to the format tab and hit edit interactions. And once that's turned on, then you can click on any visual. So like the date slicer. And then once I click on it, you see all of these little circles and all these icons. So you also see one right here on the KPI card. This one that says filter is selected. You can unselect it or select the one that says none. And that means now the date slicer can no longer filter this KPI card. So if I click on 2025, it'll stay static. And I could do that right here too. Like if I don't want this column chart to filter the KPI card, I could click on the column chart, hover over here, click none. All of a sudden, if you select milk, it does not change any of this. So yeah, this is something that I use deliberately. Try to think about what exactly the end user is expecting to see from a UX perspective, and also a lot of times they have actual requirements on that as well. So something that definitely I use quite a bit, and then sometimes you don't want to turn off any of the cross filtering between visuals, and it's a nice nice feature that comes with Power BI. So all right, I think we made it through the entire checklist, all 11 items. You have your different areas, the DAX and modeling, the selection pane organization with accessibility, and the report design. Obviously, none of those are really groundbreaking on their own, but they're a difference between what I think makes a report feel like thrown together and one that was built by someone who actually cared about every detail of the report. So I think it's what separates, good Power BI work from great Power BI work. It's not one big thing. It's 11 small things consistently applied through your work. So I'll drop that checklist in the chat. You can use it for your reference.